Imagine standing at the base of a vertical cliff face, staring up into the clouds, knowing you have to scale it with nothing but your bare hands and a heavy backpack. That is exactly what saving your first $1,000 feels like. At your banking app, and instead of a safety net, you see a digitized heavy weight that anchors you to anxiety. Read $300, or maybe you are hovering around zero waiting for a direct deposit just to breathe again. When you are in that trench, the first milestone seems less like a financial goal and more like a cruel joke. You have likely heard the online echoes of wealthy talking heads claiming that the first $100,000 is the hardest, or that money eventually starts to multiply itself. When you are struggling to pay for gas and groceries, the same week that advice sounds incredibly out of touch, bordering on insulting. But here is the twist that might actually make you angry before it sets you free. Those gurus are technically correct, but they are failing to explain the mechanism. They are leaving out the dark, biological reality of why the beginning is so brutal. The barrier preventing you from wealth isn't just low wages or high inflation. It is a mathematical and psychological gravity well designed to keep you on the ground. Understanding this isn't just about motivation, it is about reverse engineering the trap so you can dismantle it. My goal here at Bakey Invests is to hand you the blueprint to break out of that gravitational pull. If you are exhausted from spinning your wheels and getting nowhere, you are in the right place to learn how to weaponize brain against the poverty cycle. Before we dissect the numbers, we have to look at the adversary in the mirror. When you visualize a millionaire, you probably imagine someone who possesses a discipline you lack, or perhaps someone who had a lucky head start. You might think they have a dormant wealth gene that skipped you. But the reality is far more uncomfortable. The chasm between the wealthy and the perpetually broke is rarely about intelligence or even income level. It is about navigating a minefield of invisible cognitive biases. Your brain, for all its complexity, is a survival engine, not a wealth-building machine. It is hardwired to sabotage your long-term security in favor of immediate dopamine. Neuroscientists refer to a specific glitch in our programming called temporal discounting. In plain English, this means your brain views the you of tomorrow as a complete stranger. When you have $50 in your hand, your brain screams that buying a steak dinner tonight provides a guaranteed survival benefit and pleasure spike. Giving that $50 to future you feels like handing money to a random guy on the street. It feels like a loss, not an investment. This creates a friction that makes the first few steps of saving feel physically painful. However, the exact same neural pathways that make saving your first $1,000 feel like torture are the same ones that will eventually make building wealth feel automatic. We are going to expose the specific mental blockades that are keeping you poor and teach you how to flip the switch. One of the most insidious traps is what behavioral economists call the house money effect. This is a mental accounting error where we assign different values to money based on its origin. If you sweat for 40 hours to earn a paycheck, that money feels serious. You protect it. Use it for rent and bills. But if you find a $20 bill on the sidewalk, or get a tax refund, or receive a birthday check, your brain labels this as free money. It creates a hallucination that this cash exists outside your budget, making it acceptable to waste on things you would never buy with your salary. This is a primary reason why high-income earners can still end up with zero net worth. Segregate their income into essential and play categories, unknowingly torching their potential wealth. To a calculator, a dollar is a dollar, regardless of whether it came from hard labor or a lucky lottery ticket. Until you train your brain to respect every single dollar with the same intensity, you are pouring water into a leaking bucket, deeper than these surface level tricks are the money scripts running in your operating system. These are the silent narratives you absorbed before you were even old enough to drive, Maybe your childhood home was a war zone where money was the only weapon, teaching you that wealth equals conflict. Perhaps you heard the phrase, "we can't afford that," so many times that it became your identity, convincing you that scarcity is your natural state. Or maybe money was a taboo subject, a dirty secret never to be discussed, leaving you with a subconscious shame attached to the desire for financial abundance. These invisible scripts dictate your debit card swipes every single day. Most people live and die without ever realizing they are acting out a play written by their parents' anxieties. And it gets worse. You are fighting millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Your ancestors survived by consuming resources immediately. If a caveman saved a mammoth steak for next year, it would rot or he would be dead before he could eat it. Your amygdala is still operating on that eat it or lose it software. When you try to save, are literally fighting a biological imperative that screams, "Consume now to survive!" It feels irrational in a world of compound interest and index funds, but your lizard brain doesn't know about the stock market. It only knows scarcity. This is why dragging yourself to that first $1,000 feels like fighting a rip current. You are swimming against the tide of your own biology. Here is where the narrative shifts from a tragedy to a thriller. Once you push past a specific financial threshold, the resistance breaks. Your brain stops viewing frugality as a punishment and starts viewing it as a high score. This is the concept of self-efficacy kicking in. When you have zero savings, the idea of having $10,000 is as abstract as living on Mars. Your brain refuses to allocate energy toward an impossible goal. However, the moment you cross the finish line of that first $1,000, you have tangible proof of concept. You have rewritten your identity. You are no longer a person who can't save. You are a person who has saved. This seemingly small victory alters your neural architecture. Data shows that individuals who conquer that first milestone are statistically far more likely to reach the next one because the mental fog clears. Now, let's pivot to the mathematics, because this is where the magic transitions from a feeling to a fact. The first $1,000 is pure grunt work. It is 100% dependent on your ability to say no to immediate gratification. But once that capital is deployed, you gain a silent partner. This is where compound growth enters the chat. Let's run a scenario that will change how you view your paycheck forever. Imagine you commit to squeezing out just $100 a month. I know that depending on your situation, $100 can feel like a mountain, but stay with me. At that pace, it takes you 10 agonizing months to stack up $1,000. That is nearly a year of skipping happy hours, cooking at home, and feeling like you are missing out. It is a slow, grinding process where the progress bar barely moves. But once you have that capital invested, the dynamic shifts. Let's assume you keep grinding, adding that same $100 monthly. But now your money is sitting in a standard index fund earning a historical average of 7%. Journey to your second $1,000 doesn't take 10 months. It takes 9. Then the next one takes 8.5. By the time you are aiming for your 10th thousand, the gap between milestones has shrunk dramatically to less than 6 months. This is the point where most people's minds blow. We are not just talking about saving time, we are talking about labor. In the beginning, you are the only one pushing the cart, but as your balance grows, your money starts pushing with you. While you are sleeping, while you are stuck in traffic, while you are watching a movie, your army of dollars is out there recruiting more dollars. Time you hit $10,000 invested, the returns generated by your money start to rival your monthly contributions. At a 7% return, $10,000 portfolio generates roughly $700 a year. That is 7 months of your hard work generated out of thin air without you lifting a finger. This is the moment the psychological game changes completely. You stop dreading the monthly transfer and start craving it. You check your portfolio and realize this is actually happening. The feedback loop flips, the pain of saving dissolves, replaced by the dopamine hit of watching the number climb. This is the Bakey Invests philosophy in action, turning the boring math of finance into an addictive game of growth. Who reach this stage often undergo a radical personality change. They start hunting for inefficiencies in their life. They get excited about tax optimization and expense ratios, not because they are boring accountants, but because they realize that a 1% fee is a leak in their freedom fund. They stop viewing a fancy dinner as a reward and start seeing it as a theft from their future independence. This isn't about being a miser, it is about clarity. When you realize that every dollar you spend is a soldier you are firing from your army, you can walk away from a bad situation. You can take a calculated risk on a new business. You can weather a medical emergency without spiraling into debt. This is why the old adage says the first 100,000 is the hardest. It isn't just the math, it is the metamorphosis. You have to, the version of yourself that seeks instant gratification and birth a new version that values long-term freedom. Most people wash out before they get there. They quit in month 4 or 5 because the hill feels too steep and the reward feels too distant. Stare at a balance of $400 and think, this is pointless. They don't realize they are standing 3 feet from gold. They are months away from the psychological tipping point that would alter their entire destiny. Those who grit their teeth and push through the initial resistance discover that wealth building isn't about a lifetime of sacrifice. It is about a short season of intense discipline followed by a lifetime of momentum. The unspoken secret of compound interest isn't the percentage yield, is the behavioral modification. Once you see the machine working, you become obsessed with optimizing it. You start looking for ways to use your income not to buy a better car, but to feed the machine. You become hyper aware of where your resources are going. Meanwhile, you will look around at your peer group and see them running on the hamster wheel you just escaped. It can be frustrating to watch friends complain about being broke, while simultaneously making decisions that guarantee they stay that way. They will drop $40 on cocktails on a Friday night, literally pissing the money away hours later, and then claim they cannot afford to invest $20 a month. They will sign a contract for a $1,000 smartphone they don't need, locking themselves into payments while calling the stock market gambling. Cognitive dissonance is blinding. It is tragic to watch people prioritize looking rich over becoming free. Consider this statistic. Average person spends more annually on their morning coffee ritual than they have sitting in their emergency fund. Let that reality settle in. We have a culture that is more committed to caffeinated bean water than to its own survival. This is not about shaming anyone for enjoying a latte. It is about waking up to the math. It is about realizing that your brain has been tricking you into trading your freedom for fleeting comforts. The path to the first $1,000 is a war against your own biology, your upbringing, and a society designed to keep you consuming. But the view from the other side, it is worth every single battle. Once you break that initial gravitational pull, the universe starts to assist you. The math turns in your favor. The psychology shifts from resistance to flow. You stop swimming upstream and finally let the current carry you toward the life you actually want. But you have to take that first, painful step. You have to decide that your future freedom is more valuable than current comfort. The math works. The science is undeniable. The only variable left in the equation is you.